If you've ever looked at a 5 or 6 or 8,000 lumen light and thought, child's play, I need something brighter. Here's your light, 12,000 lumens. Just when you thought lights couldn't get any brighter, here we go. This is the Magicshine Monteer 12,000, and I've been using it for a while now, and I'm going to talk about the pros and the cons and my experience with it. I've been using the 8,000 for quite a while, up until recently, for gravel riding. Now there is a feature about the 8,000 that I really like, which I'll talk about, but I'm going to do this review with the light on the bike, since that's probably how you're going to use a bike light. And so I have mainly been using this for gravel riding. Unfortunately, where I mountain bike primarily close to my house is a state park, and we cannot ride at night. Now I've used the 8,000 in mountain bike events, and I'll be using this one in some upcoming mountain bike events, but up until right now, I've only used it on a gravel bike, but it's insane. And it's the kind of light that, like, if you're in an event and you come up behind someone, they're gonna pull over because you're gonna be casting a shadow where they can't even see. So there's some benefits in that regards, but let's take a close-up look at the light and I'll show you some features of it. I'll start by showing the battery first. So I've got it mounted on my gravel bike on the top tube. I haven't trimmed these straps yet. They go on really easily, but I just wanted to have enough in case I mount it on the top tube or down tube that's thicker, but I'll probably end up trimming these because you have a lot of excess that you can kind of wrap around. I just really just tuck them in here, but I've got to actually find a better way to deal with that before I trim these. But like I said, it mounts real easily. It's got some rubber texture underneath the strap that you can't really see there in the video, but it's under there where it touches the frame. And then it's also got some rubber here, so not only does it not slide around, it also keeps from scratching your frame. This is where the light head plugs in. It's a little 3-prong insert there, and then it charges with USB-C. There is your USB-C charge port, and it also acts as a discharge port, so you could charge up a phone or other light or whatever by plugging in a USB-C there, so that's pretty cool. You can check the charge level of the battery by touching this power button here, and it's got 4 bars of LED, so right now it's fully charged. And this is, by the way, a 10,000 milliamp battery. It's massive. The battery actually weighs 2 pounds, so that is one of the downsides of this. It is hefty, but you know, to have a light this bright and runs this long, which I'll talk about the burn time coming up, you have to have a pretty big battery. Just to give you an idea of size, this is the 8,000, the Monteer 8,000 battery compared to this, and this is significantly lighter. The light head mounts to the bike with a bracket, as opposed to the Monteer 8,000 light head that used a Garmin quarter turn mount. So this is the handlebar mount that I normally use for my Garmin, and also I used it for the light, and I really liked this. So you can just put that in, and you know, that goes underneath, and it sits there really nicely, super quick and easy. So that to me is probably the biggest downside to this light. I don't mind the weight on a gravel ride, but the fact that you have to use a bracket means you're not taking it on and off the bike really quickly. Now, if you are the kind of person that you mount the light for the winter time and it stays on your bike and you use it all winter long, then you're fine. But you're not taking this on and off real quickly. So, you know, it's a couple minutes to put this on the bike. It's not a big deal. But the big deal for me is the fact that I had to take off this mount. Now, I could, in theory, put the Garmin mount on the side, which would work. But what I did was I just used the Garmin mount that goes on real quickly with the bands. And so that allows me to put my Garmin over to the side. Not ideal for me. I like it kind of right in the middle for monitoring, especially when I'm doing intervals or something like that. But while I'm using this light, I would have the Garmin mounted over to the side. So that is probably, like I said, the biggest downside. What is nice is you've got this little thumb screw here, so you can loosen it and then you can adjust the light and then tighten this back up. And the other side is just a regular Allen screw. So that is kind of cool. This is your power button, and we're going to do some testing at night, and I'll show you how bright this is. But to turn the light on, you're just going to press the power button and hold it down for about 2 seconds. And I'm going to show the actual lights here in a minute because it's pretty unique. But you've also got a power gauge here. This light actually has a ventilation system. So you've got a vent here in the front so the air can come through, and then it comes out these 3 vents in the back. You have to have that because of how hot this light can get. So when I pulled it out of the box, I powered it on without any air going through it, and the light head heated up immediately. And on 12,000 lumens, I mean, within 30 seconds, the light head was really hot. However, when I'm riding, even on the setting that's not quite the highest setting, so 1 down, the light head barely gets warm. And then when you put it on 12,000 lumens, it does get warm, but if you're riding the bike and air is coming through, it does a good job of keeping it cool. On the front of the light, you've got 5 LED bulbs, and you're either using this bulb or you're using the side bulbs. This one produces kind of a square pattern. Magicshine calls this a flood, and if you use these, which makes the beam wider, they call it a spot. I think that's backwards terminology, honestly, because this is more of a spot, and the idea is the square pattern is not going to blind people if you're going down the street. So, you know, people walking down the street, and it's not quite as bright. When you have the full brightness going, then these 4 bulbs come on. I'll power it on in just a minute to show you, and then of course we'll do our night test. But again, I call that the flood, and then I would call this a spot, but Magicshine has a different terminology. But regardless, it's bright and it does work. I'll show you the bulbs without pointing the camera directly at them. So that's the center bulb, which again, Magicshine calls floodlight, I call it spot. But that's the lowest mode, that's eco mode, that's 300 lumens, and that will go for 85 hours. Up 1, I'm using the remote, which I'll show here in a minute. That's low, 800 lumens, 35 hours. Medium, 1500 lumens, 19 hours of burn time. And then that's high, and that is 2500 lumens, and then 10 hours of burn time. Now I'll switch over to the outside bulbs, which are brighter. I'll use the remote, double tapping the circle. Again, Magicshine calls this spotlight. I call this the flood, but that's your eco mode, and that is 1000 lumens that goes for 37 hours. Up 1, that's the low mode, 3000 lumens, 11 hours and 30 minutes. And then medium, that's 6000 lumens, 7 hours. And then we're gonna go up to high, which is 12,000 lumens, and that is 2.5 hours of burn time. So that's the full brightness, and it's so bright that you can put your hand in front and it literally warms up your hands. So if you're riding at night and it's wintertime and you need to warm up your hands, you can do that. Again, I would not recommend this for very long without air flowing through, because I can already feel the light head getting hot, but just want to show you that. This is the remote that Magicshine includes, which you can mount on your handlebars. I have the same remote with my Monteer 8000, and it's very functional. Holding down either button for 2 seconds will turn the light on and will also turn it off. With the light on, if you double tap the circle, it will switch between the light heads. So that is the lights on the outside, which again is the brighter one. Double tap it again, it goes back to the center one. And then you can tap the circle to go between the different brightness levels. So it's got 4 brightness levels. Again, you can just cycle through those. If you double tap the square, it's going to go into the flashing modes, which by the way, you can only access the flashing modes with the remote, which I think is a little odd. You cannot do it with a button on the light. So if you double tap the square, it goes into a night flashing mode, so it keeps this light on and uses the outside lights for flash. Double tap it again, and you go into a day flashing mode. Now, you can also bring the full light on to full brightness by just tapping the square. So that's a real quick brightness, and then tap it again and it'll go back to the setting that you were at before. Also included with the Monteer 12,000 is a helmet bracket in case you want to put a 12,000 lumen light on your helmet. I think the light head would be a bit too heavy for my taste, and you would probably vaporize whoever you looked at with that thing on your head if it was at 12,000 lumens. But if you want to, you get the helmet bracket with some straps. You also get various size plastic shims for the bracket for your handlebars. Now for the night test. So this is the square pattern, the center bulb at its lowest setting. That's the next highest, second to highest, and then that's the highest for the center bulb. I'm going to go back to the lowest setting. I'm going to switch over to the side bulbs. So that's the lowest, that's the high, next to lowest, the third one, and then number 4 is I don't know how this is showing up on video, but this is crazy. Now I want to do a comparison with the 8000. So this is the 8000 at its brightest setting. I'm going to switch it off, and then I'm going to switch on the Monteer 12,000. So 8000 goes off, 12,000 comes on. So, you know, it's not a huge difference, but the 12,000 just has a wider throw. I'll go back to the 8,000 so you can see it. But again, the 12,000 just covers more area. So I'm going to shut it off and then shut on the 8,000. Okay, so that's the 8,000. 8,000 is still a great light. Still one of my favorites because of the weight and also how quickly it goes on and off the bike. So there you go, the Monteer 12,000. Is it overkill? It could be for you. Just depends on your application. I'm looking forward to using this in a mountain bike event at night. I think it's just going to be incredible. For gravel riding, the 8,000 is fine for me. In fact, I'll be using the 8,000 for my weekly switching on and off the bike because I like how quickly that comes off the bike. But if you need just maximum brightness, it's the brightest bike light I've ever seen. It's crazy. So anyway, I'll put an affiliate link in the description below if you want to check one of these out. Thanks for watching.